is enough to go ahead and get a rolling start. All right, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I pray Allah that everyone is enjoying this time of the change of the seasons. I love this time of the year, you know, coming into fall, getting prepared for winter, and what comes after that. Uh, but alhamdulillah, we want to start our class, of course, like we always do. We're being prepared from, day to day. We're being prepared, and this effort called Nunetics, we're being prepared to become better and better frequency modulators. And that's one way to really understand uh, how the source creator has advanced humanity to a point where we can see ourselves in that very, very fundamental state. Of course, International Instructor Bilal today will look at the subject that he's calling original humans and copycats, and I'm looking forward to that. So to get us prepared for that, we uh, we suggest very strongly that you get yourself ready, frequency wise. And the way you tune in to the fitra is through, for us as human beings, is to do our gratitude journal, do our reflections, do our remembering, things, these 10 things that you have to be grateful for. Again, it certainly helps to write it down because it goes a little deeper when you actually take out a utensil and put it to pen or pencil to paper. So just take a moment if you haven't done so, and that's a good way to even prepare even before we actually come together as a class, and preparing. Just get your sensitivities, get your emotional state, get your thoughts, even get your body language, even, getting it all lined up, do it through gratitude. That's a way to start and a way to finish any activity, any event, any day of your life. Do it in gratitude. If you find yourself getting out of balance, again, start giving conscious attention. Start paying attention to the things that you have to be grateful for. It'll bring you back into that balance. That's what life is all about. So, again, original humans and copycats. I'm looking forward to that. Uh, I- and I pray Allah that you had an opportunity to do what I did between the last time we met on our last Sunday, and that's to look back at to our class on the subject matter that's very important for us on women, women, uh, according to the Quran, and it was such a timely subject matter. I know certainly for me to be able to understand and appreciate that dynamic of human life. What actually is this very basic and fundamental relationship that we have physically and materially in terms of family life. Uh, and the role that mother plays, that your wife plays, that your daughter plays, that your nieces play, uh, in the whole mix in terms of what their life experience, and what is it pointing to in terms of your own development, in terms of your own growth, in terms of your own meaning. It's one of the best ways to do that, in any relationship, to ask yourself the question, you know, what, why am I here? Or what role am I playing? What do I have to learn? Instead of concentrating, as was we have a tendency to do, on the other person in the relationship. The more we concentrate on self, the more we can learn about the other person and about ourselves, and be able to advance the relationship. So this subject matter that we're entering upon today, the original human, I just reflected on it preparing for class today. And one thing it took me to is something that I want to announce before we get too deeply into our class. Uh, I'm actually going to be interviewed as an elder member of the community uh, on next Sunday after our class. Rashida Muslim out of Weatherford, which is uh, she's part of a effort there in the Weatherford area in Texas, establishing model community life. And my family was a part of that effort some years ago. But she wants to interview me on her elders podcast. So this whole idea of OG kind of thing, reflecting reflecting on our elders and the roles that we play in the mix. Uh, those of you who would like to get to know uh, your fellow instructor, meaning myself, uh, at after our class, if you want to tune in to that hour-long interview, uh, it will be good. It will be good. This is next Sunday, right after our class. So I just want to make that known before I forget about it. Uh, but today's subject matter is, to me, it's uh, so meaningful in our experience as a growing force in the West, in America. One of the first ideas that we got from W.D. Farrar was in regards to his symbolic language that he used, calling or referring us to his idea, his concept of the original man. And those of you who've been around for a minute like me, you remember those what we call the lessons in the Nation of Islam, uh, the original, again, using that same word, the original uh, Nation of Islam. It has taken on, of course, a different form now under uh, Minister Farrakhan's leadership, but back then it was a very important concept. Uh, and any thinker, any thinker will take the time in their own life experience to raise those kinds of questions. Where did I come from? Why am I here? What prepared me for my life experience today? Uh, what does it mean? And those are just the real basic fundamental questions. But any thinker will start entertaining those questions at some point in their life, you know. And the older you get, the more pondering you will have a tendency to do about your whole life experience, especially in terms of its meaning. And as you get older, you start entertaining the idea of your mortality more than you do when you're younger. And so it gives rise to those kinds of questions in terms of, what is this thing all about, Alfie? This thing that we call life, and my life in particular, and the life of my family. So I hope you all are enjoying this experience that we're having in our class as much as I am, because it certainly is enabling me to go broader and deeper, uh, and really appreciate uh, this time, this space that Allah has allowed me to occupy, call my own life. So we are geared up again for original humans and copycats. You know, uh, uh, International Instructor will come to us soon. Well, we're going to have Sean in just a few moments share with us some thoughts. As you can recall, on our last class, we had we had a class that reflected on uh, that principle, that feminine principle in all of life, but especially in the human life, uh, by having two of our class members uh, make presentations. Baina and Nawani did a wonderful job, and we're expecting that for each of our class members. Just be prepared for it. And the best way to do that is to do your own research, uh, use the online etymological dictionary uh, to uh, to get deeper into meanings of words that you may not be familiar with, and just chase the words, chase the concepts, chase the letters, you know. And the more you go after them, the more Allah will open up for you. And that's the way just to keep this learning process moving and keeping it active. And it's like one of the points that International Instructor covered last week, uh, when he was talking, not referring not only to the Quran but also to the Bible in terms of how it relates to the Adam and his wife. And one of the points that he made that really got my attention was that it said the translation said that I spoke of Adam and his wife being in the garden, but he brought us up into a whole another world when he shared that understanding with us that a more appropriate translation of that idea and that phrase was that Adam's wife is the garden. And that really got my wheels a turning, you know. And I started thinking about my experience. One of the things that I've been promoting for some time now is that in order for us to develop the model community, an important step in that direction is for us to grow something, start growing something. You know, if you have a front yard or a backyard, use that space. You can decorate it in such a way. You can uh, do it in such a way till it's not a complete shock for your neighbors. If you do it right, it'll be a welcome change in the neighborhood instead of everybody just growing grass. You know, if you don't live in a house, if you're in an apartment, you still, even if you're in a one room apartment, you still can grow something. You can grow it in a can, you can grow it in a bucket, you can 5-gallon bucket especially. Uh, you can make a little planter, but get into the everyday experience of uh, learning about yourself by communicating with the fitra, not only in terms of your own physical body, but the plant life. That should be a part of our conscious effort to establish model community life. But that point that instructor shared with us last week, again, it was an eye opener for me to really think about that gardening experience of engaging this creation, as Imam Muhammad used to point us uh, to do on numerous occasions. He did that, but to engage this creation. And one of the best ways to do that is uh, to grow something and then mind your garden. In other words, pay attention to it, engage it, follow the lead of George Washington Carver to go out and some of us are doing this already. You might have some house plants, and you'll talk to your house plants. But to see something grow from the seed or from the little seedling and go through the stages, it constantly is feeding your mind, feeding your intellect, feeding your spirit, you know. So it's an experience that you don't want to miss. You want to make that a part of your daily experience. Go out, and it's one thing about gardening or farming. It's an everyday experience. You don't do it just when you feel like it. You know, uh, you can put a seed in the ground, and it can begin to send the tap root down, which is something that International Instructor mentioned last week. That the whole concept of taproot in terms of where we are as a class, as a movement. Nunetics is a movement. You know, and we are at this stage where we are establishing the taproot, and we're beginning to see the beginnings of the urge in us collectively to break the soil and begin to establish the roots and come into the light of day as a phenomenon called nunetics. So this being able to experience that and be able to see it firsthand, you know, get into the mode of planting something and nurturing that plant life. You will learn so much about yourself by doing that, if you're open to it. There's uh, another part of that experience. If you can get outside and you got some dirt around you, some grass around you, a garden bed around you, take your socks off, your shoes off, and get barefoot out there and experience the connection that you have to the earth. And one of the things that have been coming uh, in my recent experience with International Instructor preparing the 29 letter modules. We had missed one, or we couldn't locate it on the 10th letter, which is Ra. And so we went ahead and uh, did a recording a few days ago. And so it's got me back into the question that I think Hassan mentioned, Ahmed Hassan mentioned last week when he raised the question about uh, us understanding or not having a good understanding of the ayat, where Allah tells us to save yourself and your family from the fire. You know, and I started thinking about, as we started developing the concept of Ra. I started thinking about the fact that the ancient Egyptians had paid so much attention to the sun, and of course they had the mythology that's come down to us about their worship of the sun, and the Amen Ra being that title that they had given to that concept or that idea. And I started looking at that. And it just took me further and further and further and further into the appreciation and understanding of this letter and what it meant in terms of the fitra and how it related to my going out on every day, watching the growth of these plants. And I started thinking about how the sun not only uh, has a definite major part in the growth of that plant as it breaks ground and starts developing stems and leaves, but also in terms of just the fact that the sun also penetrates the soil, warms up the soil, and gets light and and warmth to the seed that's hidden and covered in the ground. Again, just sharing with you, you know, the more you take what we're learning in our class experience and begin to apply it to your life and apply it to this process of getting more and more involved actively, mentally, and answering these questions for yourself about your own life experience, the more you allow uh, this habit to be formed of your uh, interacting with the fitra on a regular basis. This that be become the norm in your life, to be constantly reflecting on the fitra. The more you do that, the more you help move this whole concept of establishing the model community for you, for yourself, for your family life, for your generational wealth establishment. The more that becomes real to you and reachable for you. So just sharing some thoughts, as we prepare uh, for the presentation that we're expecting from our international instructor, Benjamin Bilal. And Sean, if you are on board, and I'm sure you are, and if you're ready to take this talking stick and share whatever you have to share with our class, we are ready for you. I'm not seeing him now. There he is.
Is it? Okay.
All right, alhamdulillah. All right. Well,
Alaikum.
wa alaikum salam. Uh, we're ready for you, brother. So just share.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Wa alaikum salam.
Um, the interesting thing about this, and to show you how
Walaikum salam.
everything comes together, whether you think it, whether you expect it or not. Everything that you just been talking about, segue. It was a perfect segue. Couldn't it even been a better introduction to what I'm about to discuss? Because just like you, it made me think. And then with my notes, I put follow up behind two women because that's what I'm coming up behind. Um, but what it made me do was think about the letter noon and what it represents and how it plays into the fitra and even the relationship between men and women and the relationship between the two energies, the masculine and the feminine. And I try to make it quickly. Say we got 5 minutes. But if you look at the letter noon itself, and this is specifically, I think, people that are into plants and having
Take
gardening.
your time. Take your time. We with you.
Oh, okay, I'll take my time. Um, if you look at the letter noon, it looks in as much as if you have your container. So like, say, for instance, this is your flower pot, and you have your seed, and you dropping it in your flower pot. That's a noon, and that made me. I had never thought about it before until that. Um, but just like it takes, your due diligence and care when it comes to planting and growing, that's the same thing when it comes to dealing with our feminine counterpart. Because as men, we are the carriers of the seed, and the woman is the carrier of the womb, which represents the soil, if you can relate. So just as if we put a seed into the soil, you can't just put the seed in any type of soil and expect it to get its full growth and full potential. So if you put a seed in sand versus putting it in humus, you're going to get a different result. It may still grow, but you're not going to get the full potential because the sand doesn't have the same nutrients as what the humus would have. And I learned that just from, carrying on the tradition with my grandfather because he fed, probably about 10 kids off the farm. And he planted a seed because the property that I'm residing on right now, is his, which was passed down to him from his father. So I'm benefiting from that. And it can, I remember as a kid, we was playing out here, it was a tobacco field. Now we have a house on it. So it's just beautiful how that happens. But but back to what I was saying. So for instance, like as men, we have a great responsibility. If you look at nature, all of the male are the colorful ones, the peacock, the cardinals here in North Carolina, they're red. Um, the lion with its mane, they have those different things to attract the female. So initially, the female, the woman responds to the actions of a man. And unfortunately, in these days and ages, it's a confusion. Oh, I want a thug, I want a gangster. But naturally, what they're thinking about is that security that men are supposed to provide a woman, so that a woman could be a woman in her full essence and be able to give birth to a nice, healthy society. But she can't do that if she's worrying about being a man or being more into her masculine side. So you have to have a balance. Um, but just like with that, as men, we can't just go out there and spread our seed all over the place, not being responsible. Yes, it says in the Bible, be fruitful and multiply, but it's much more than, well, I got a whole harem of women. I got a whole stable. Because you can have, and no disrespect, but I'm just talking real talk. You can have somebody that's crazy. You can have someone that's very intelligent, or you can have someone that's just so stable, but then that messes up because of the choices you're making. Um, and that even correlates into the dhikr, which of course it's interpreted that's where we get the word think from, and it's also a word for penis, and it's also a word for man. So as men, and I know specifically with me, when I think about that, that means that being that I'm a man, and that word is relative to us, and I possess the seed, I have to think before I spread my seed. I can't just go anywhere. And never mind that we have, prophylactics or unfortunately abortion. That doesn't absolve us from our responsibility of who we choose to lay down with and not do it in the proper context, because that's why we got all this chaos in the world. And that's why it's such a beautiful thing. I remember when I heard Imam W. Muhammad speak about plant life being a perfect example for human life, it clicked, because I have an issue now with the plant. I left it outside to get the morning sun, and I forgot about it. And then the
Mm.
next morning I go out to get it, and it's all shriveled up and whatnot because it had too much sun, and it's more or less a low light plant. And so now I'm working to get that back going. But like when you plant, use a seed which is contracted, and you put it in the soil, which causes the expansion. Um, that plant will grow to like say for instance, the size of the pot, and it will either stop growing or it just stopped being quote unquote a plant. It doesn't expand, and then you have to transplant that into a bigger pot. But then you just can't say, for instance, the pot is a circumference of 3. You can't just throw that plant into the circumference of a pot that's like 12 or 15, because you're putting it into an environment that's too overwhelming for that plant to adapt to it. So you have to do that in increments, and that's how I think the instructor is giving this to us in increments. Because I remember when I was first introduced to Neonetics, I was excited and everything, but then when I started getting into it, I'm like, wow, this is much deeper than I anticipated being. And so then I had to come into that psychology and let ego go aside. Oh, I learned Arabic. I know this. I know that. But you got to take a step back and refocus, for lack of a better term. But just going back to the whole Noonetics thing with the C, the letter Noon. I see it as man representing the seed bearer and the woman representing the womb. So just as the tractor is what plows the soil, that's what well, we know what the man uses. So, but I don't want to go into all that terminology. But the man represents the tractor or all the implements that's used for when you are plowing the soil. And then, like I said, the woman is the soil itself. And the quality of that soil is going to determine that. But then even when I was like breaking down the letters, because let me go with my notes here. Because it took me on a wild ride and I had to really step back and really look at it. But in Arabic, the word for sex is jins. Also in Hausa and Swahili, you have jinsi, which is sex. Now, that word is not in the Quran. The closest correlation to it would be Jannah, which is Jim, Noon, Noon. And we know when you have the two letters together, it emphasizes what the meaning of what Noon is. But when I was researching with Noon, I realized that with the Surah Al-Qalam, which is the 68th verse of the Quran, the first letter is Noon. And it's interpreted as, noon by the pen and what they inscribe. And so that made me think about the importance of the letter noon, because as we know, it's a seed. And so once a seed is planted, you have the roots to consider and you have the outgrowth to consider. So it's so many things that you can study to get the true meaning behind it. But then I noted it was kind of interesting that the second verse, because he's speaking to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, saying that he is not Majnun, but he said, of course, by the favor of your Lord, you're not a madman, which is what Majnun is. And that comes from Jannah. And up until this time, I never even had that correlation between that, because the same root, Jannah, is where paradise comes from. And we used to joke, hal anta majnoon, lace to majnoon, stuff like that, and it just never correlated to me that connection. But because of course the Jannah means to be secret, to hide, but then that breaks it back to the whole thing about the garden, because a garden is something that you hide the seed in. You don't know what's going to happen. You know that if you got to water it, you got to make sure the sun, but you don't know what quality of the fruit is going to be. You can kind of what anticipate it, but only Allah knows best, what the yield is going to be. But even like with sex, the word, even though it's not in the Quran, it comes from that. And most oftentimes when you're engaged in sex, it's in the private, unless you're in the world with all this craziness and doing it all over the place. But it goes back to the fitra nature of things and how things are supposed to be in its place. And then also in my research for it, it brought me to, well, of course, gents, if you look at the lettering, it would constantly connected to the English word genes, genetics. And then when you engage in gents or gensy, you are passing on genetics. The male's genetics deposited into the female, then the female puts in her genes, and then that child is a combination of the genes of the mother and the father. It said gene is, no, Jannah is the gene noon noon is the root. And Jannah, which we know as paradise, comes from that root. Because people say we want to see paradise, we want to see paradise. But if you are not behaving in the proper frequency, paradise is hidden from you. And as human beings, we don't know what paradise is. We according to the Quran, but we don't have personal knowledge of it. We have the information of it, which is feminine, but we don't have the experience, which is masculine. And of course, we know information and experience come together. You have knowledge. And it's no coincidence that knowledge has 9 letters. Did I do it right? Oh, yeah. I'm reversed in the thing, but it has 9. And that brings it back to noon. And it brings it back to feminine, the 9. So it all really comes together. I mean, it's much more that I would love to address, but I don't want to take all the time. Because I even broke down the whole thing with gents. Gene, excuse me, Gene, Noon, and seen. But then Quranically, they have a word seen, jim, noon, which it means to imprison, jail, restrain, conceal. So even though, as the instructor explained to us before, even though as long as it has the same letters, you're gonna have that connection to the meaning. And I think the main thing is concealment and also register, record. Because as men, once we lay with a woman, it's registered. We cannot sit there and we can deny that child is ours, but the DNA, the genes will prove it. So what we think is hidden is always going to come out. I mean, those are just some of the few things, that I was going through with my notes. But then it, the word for copulation, or like say intercourse, is let me make sure Jim Ma'a, which is Jim, Meme, Alif, Ain. And that's where we get the word Juma from, Jamia, because it's a collection. Two people coming together, 2 million plus sperm going on their journey, give birth to a child, and then that child goes and get married. And so it's like a whole community get built from that one act of jinsi, which has the word noon, the letter noon, which represents the seed. And everything comes from that seed based upon the environment and things of that nature. But I hope I wasn't too verbose, but
No,
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 you was not.
no, alhamdulillah. Excellent, excellent presentation, bro. And you just uh, reinforcing, the point that uh, Allah it teaches us, you know, and we would just open ourselves to the fitra, then it's an open book.
Mhm.
The whole life experience and the pursuit of knowledge, as they call it, becomes an open book for us, and there's no end to it. So I certainly can feel you in terms of uh, the notes just opens you up, and it's an outpouring, of the information, and that's how we grow. That's how we grow. So excellent presentation. I certainly enjoyed that, and I wasn't even thinking that Sean is a fellow farmer when
I love it. I'm
and
already preparing for next year.
yes, 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 I love it, and it's so basic and fundamental for us. And just the only comment I have in terms of your presentation. Uh, for years, I have served as a financial advisor, and I was one of the leaders for this particular company at one point. So we used to have leadership training, and so the one of the leaders in the company, one of the top corporate leaders, used to have us come to his ranch for training, and so he was sharing with us uh, a conversation that he had had with his children. And he told them if he was in a plane and the plane was going down, and he had his child with him, and he knew the plane was going down. But he had to share with them uh, three things. Those were his last words that he had to share with his children. And he said, you mentioned about the idea of generational wealth being passed from your grandfather or great grandfather. And he said that the first thing uh, would be and we tell him to hold to the source creator. But the second thing was to choose the right wife. And when he said that, I thought he was talking about it physically, but he had either through his own guidance and his own research. I think he was now it comes to me different now, when we're looking at our wife as the garden itself, then in order for you to have generational wealth, really what you want to do is that idea that Imam Muhammad suggested that that the generation itself becomes the fitra rather becomes your wife. your garden, the whole fitra, and the fact that you want to engage that, as uh, our dear sister uh, Karima says, she says, merge, don't marry, you know. So merging into the fitra is where you come in to open up your full potential, as you mentioned. So, uh, any questions from any of our other class members? They
Praise
want
be to Allah.
to,
Muhammad Ali. How you doing? Alhamdulillah.
go ahead.
Brother Sean, Salam.
Go
Thank you
ahead.
very much. That's very good.
Okay.
And I'd just like to make a brief comment. He talked about to be fruitful and multiply. And the perspective is to multiply our intellect, our human disposition. And that's the most fruitful thing to multiply. And that goes off into every area of human life and community life. So the intellect is key in this situation. So, and multiplying within the fitra and to develop the fitra in our lives is key. So thank you very much, brother. I enjoyed that. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. And like what you said, what we're doing right now, we're being fruitful and we're multiplying.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And it doesn't involve sex. It doesn't
No,
involve the
no.
gender.
Right.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
Okay, Adib.
Salam alaikum, welcome to the. First of all, I'd like to say that was an excellent presentation. And if nobody said, I'd like you to send me your notes. I'm so serious, Sean. Send me your notes so I could begin to take what you spread and cultivate it more in the manner that I could get a opportunity to describe it. It may be different, but we're on the same route. I really enjoyed what you were saying. This is the opportunity that our farmer, uh, 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 Imam International Instructor Benjamin Bilal started to do, taking seeds and putting them so we could farm and come to cultivation through the aspect of nunetics. I think I was I was taken back how you used the imam and came back in your own particular understanding because we're all here, man. We're all here. We all have something to contribute. And you allowed me to say, I'm gonna put my hand up and do something too, but only in the light of what we got as a collective. Shukran jazilan.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah. And
Definitely do that.
that
I
collective
believe
consciousness is powerful, man. Go ahead,
I'll
Sean.
send you a screenshot of my notes that I took because so you can see either inner a reflection of how I think. But I am going to clean my notes up and put it in a discernible one because I felt like I was kind of all over the place. But
Stop that, man.
I know.
You go on what you got, man. That's the best thing. You want to be original, and you're
Right.
doing exactly what we need to see one of us doing that, so we can say, I can do that too. Shukran.
Off one.
See, and then that's the advantage of staying into a learning mode. That's the way we should live our life. Be open to learning on a continuous basis. And the more you do that, uh, the more you could be awakened, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and you'll be ready, to share. So that's just how we live our life. Uh, Abdullah C. Go ahead, brother. You got it.
Yeah, it reminded me of it. That was excellent, Sean. And thank you again. You're always bringing it in. Um, yeah, Jesus remember Jesus feeding the multitudes, right? And people always saying, he was took the fish and fed many, but he was also giving the knowledge, the understanding, and wisdom how we should live our lives. And Elijah Muhammad, I think Safir, you would, and brothers that's been in the first, he's talking about we are fishermen and we going out there and hooking the people, hooking them to the good stuff, friendship, leadership, and love for our people and for the multitudes, those who want to listen. So that's about it.
All right, alhamdulillah. All right. Well, we've prepared the way for our international instructor. Again, I know I'm certainly looking forward to uh, this part of the journey to take a fresh look at the original humans and copycats, and I think that'll bring us all the way up from the original man uh, exercise that we engaged ourselves in back in the day, as we call it, and bring us all the way up to the present day. And this new understanding that Allah is leading into, the world needs us. I can't stress that enough. The world needs what we have been given through this Nunetics process. The world needs it, and the world needs it now. So be conscious of as we're gifted going, strong seven after strong seven. I don't like that week after week thing. We're going strong seven after strong seven from class to class. Make sure you try to digest this information. It's almost like getting your favorite meal and you stuff it, and you don't take time to enjoy it and break it down and digest it to the point where your body can actually use it. Most of what you're going to ingest, take into your mouth, will go through your system and go out as waste. But your body needs a certain amount of nutrient value that's in the meal that's being served. So as you listen to our international instructor today, uh, listen very carefully, take down your notes, then go back afterwards and listen again and again and again, and then study the information. This is a class, so that you can take the meal that we're being served up and digest it and own it and let it become your expression in your life, as Sean did a wonderful job of doing today. So, international instructor Benjamin Bilal, when you are ready, we are ready for you. And I'm certainly ready to take this talking stick and pass it on. If you're ready for it.
Alhamdulillah. Yes, indeed. I stay ready. I'm ready in my sleep, man.
Yes.
3 in the morning, you wake me up with a question. I'm right there with the answer. And that's how all of us should be striving to be, theoretically speaking.
Yes.
We should always be striving to stay ready because we live in a world where you never know what curveballs will be thrown our way. So, in so much as we're studying language on the most part, language is something that, because it's influenced by human beings' minds and how human beings think, you have to always be ready for the curveball. Some of you got that. So let me begin at the beginning. As always, we begin Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and that is with Allah's signature, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. We begin all things by giving proper praise and proper credit to the source creator, whom the Quran calls Allah, but whom the Quran also tells us that there are many, many beautiful names of Allah, and that we're to accept any beautiful name, any name worth repeating concerning our source creator and how he operates. And there's not only one way that the creator operates, and that's evident by what you're witnessing in the creation itself. He didn't just create one thing. He didn't just create one people. He didn't just create one person. And you're going to learn the difference between person and people in this lesson, inshallah. So pay very careful attention as I bring up my notes. I can't be mad at that.
No.
Okay, can everyone see my screen and my notes?
Yes.
All right, so let's get this linguistic party started. Thank you again to all of those who have chosen to join us today on this Sunday, October 19th, 2025. I am your international instructor, Benjamin Bilal, and we're coming at you with another profound lesson in human behavior, human existence, which should be a paramount concern for all people who consider themselves to be true human. And again, we'll be discussing the difference between these common terms that we thought we knew. We thought we understood what these things meant, but that's not always the case because we live in a world of word manipulators. We live in a world of people who love to manipulate language. Wait a minute, am I being seen and heard?
Uh,
Loud and clear.
not, don't see you, but we hear you well.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, give me one moment. One moment.
We see your notes, but not you.
Okay, well, that's not a bad thing either, but hold on for one moment. Let me just unlock my camera. There we go. All right. Thank you
Okay.
much.
Sure.
All right. So the title for today's discourse is Original Humans and Copycat. Original Humans and Copycat. This is a part one presentation because I know that the information that's being presented is going to demand that it be a part two. So listen very carefully, and we'll have Q's and A's afterwards, so please don't interrupt the presentation. Thank you. Let us begin by discussing what a human being is. Technically speaking, a human is a type of mind. Man means mind. The prefix "hu" is from humus, which is referring to a quality of the soil. And the soil is symbolic of the soul. The soul must be humus, meaning that the soil must be humus. And that means that it must contain moisture content. That's what humus means. That's what humus does in the soil. It must be the same for the soul. Moisture indicates moral and emotional conditioning in the soul. I'm going to be going slow enough for you to pick up on exactly what I'm referring to. It indicates moral, which means you're making the best between two choices. That's what moral initially meant. Doesn't mean that today, but that's what it originally indicated, that there are choices in front of you and your mind goes to work to choose the best case scenario in terms of what you can actually benefit from, share with other people, and those people will also benefit likewise. If there is no moisture in the soil or the soul, there will be no growth. Soil which has no moisture will not produce life. The cultural tag Negro is a play on a people who were thought to have no growth. That's what Negro means among the people of secret societies and their language. Negro means no grow. And that prefix necro, which is where Negro comes from, it means dead. And we know that there is no growth among those things that are no longer living. So these are cultural tags that have been placed on certain people as an indication of what was taking place, not externally. There could be plenty of life externally, but there simultaneously could exist a situation where there is no growth internally. The majority of people on planet Earth have been and continue to be created as human doings. I know that you're calling yourself a human being, but on the most part, most of this planet Earth and its populations are actually human doings, not human beings. Your being is your essence. Your doing is simply an action. The Quran states that when Allah desired to create a thing, He simply says, kun fayakun, be, and it becomes. To do is simply an action, and all actions have a beginning and an ending. The human being was not created to be a temporary worker. The human essence was created to be eternal. Temporary things are regulated by time. Eternal things are regulated by frequency. In your essence, you are born into a world of frequencies. And we say about energy that it cannot be created nor can it die. Now, don't think about living and dying in the context of what Allah is. That's not what we're discussing. When we speak about that which neither lives nor dies, we're not talking in that vein. We're talking about the way that Allah has created frequency. And He has created frequency in our human context to be an energy that neither lives or that is neither born, to be more accurate, and that never dies. The word person is referring to your original self or your nafs. You notice that when Allah is speaking directly to the population called nafs in the Quran, prior to this physical existence that we are all so happy to be a part of now, there's a narrative in the Quran that says that Allah was speaking to every nafs that would come into existence from the beginning of time to the end of time, as we like to refer to it. And He asked all of the nafs that had collected, am I not your Rabb? Meaning, am I not the one who involved you, evolved you? We have been told that the word Rabb only means the evolver. But before anything is evolved, it has to first be involved. This is simple, logical talk that I'm giving you now. Sean made a great case in proving that the things that we put into the earth come back to us as products above the earth or out of the earth. So if evolution represents a growth out of something, what makes us think that it doesn't begin as a growth containing something inside of it or inside of something? There must first be an input before you experience an output. So this word person is referring to your original self. It literally means per by way of, sonar, or sound. All of us are manifestations out of something called sound. Sounds are produced before anything material can manifest. There has to be sound, meaning there has to be a vibration. We are vibratory beings. Sound is represented by vibration, and vibration indicates how your energy breathes. So, in so much as energy cannot be created nor destroyed, that's the position that we're taking in telling you that what is created us as material beings, the basis for it is in spiritual, if you will, in spiritual being, meaning a being that is not manifested on the physical level yet. Everything that's manifest on the physical or in the physical was once first invisible. Therefore, Allah tells us in the Quran to believe bil ghaib, believe based on that which is invisible, unseen forces. The unseen comes prior to that which is seen. When we breathe, it's involving give and take. We breathe in through our nostrils and we breathe out through our nostrils. But when breathing in, we're breathing in that which is necessary for health, and we breathe out what is corrupt. That if we were to keep it inside of us or rebreathe it, we would just eventually die from our own breath's corruption. Now, I'm speaking to you physically so that you can get the point, but more importantly, I'm speaking to you metaphysically because most of planet Earth right now seems to be breathing back in the carbon dioxide, and it is slowly causing the dissipation and eventual disappearance of the true human life. Although we exist still physically in these bodies, although we're still going to the parties on the weekend, thinking that we're having a great time and we're drinking and smoking and doping up our senses, meeting people on the dance floor whose names we hardly know, taking them home, taking them to the bed and doing whatever, nasty thing comes to our minds. And you don't even know who to thank because you barely know her name or his name for that matter. So breathing is how we connect with the ether. And that's a subject that has not been taught to us on the most part in the science classes of this world. They don't like to talk about the ether. They speak about it as though it is a myth. But the ether is real. It's called the first element, sometimes called the fifth element. They even turn that around in order to fool the populations into coming into an accurate understanding of what's being spoken of when we say fifth element. We already know that we have four basic elements. What we're not realizing is that all four of those basic elements that we can now identify in the physical creation, air, water, fire, earth, and we can identify them, we can point at them. There's one of them that we have to be a little bit more skilled at pointing out. That's the air, because you can't see it. You can feel it, but you can't see it. But all four of those elements actually came out of that first element called ether. Ether is the other element. And you can even see a hint at the word ether in the word breathe and breath. And if you do not have breath, if you cannot breathe upon coming into this planet, onto this planet, you're going to have a problem. You're coming here with all of your senses intact and your body parts in play. You come out as a freshly formed, a whole being. But if those lungs don't become activated through the activation of breath, you won't be here for long. So breathing is important because ether is important. And ether, I repeat, contains all of the four essential elements. So ether is actually the soil out of which the other four elements that we can readily recognize become activated. Breathing is how we connect with the ether, and ether is how we are connected to the cosmos, just to the earth. Listen carefully. Ether is how we are connected with the other elements that are connected to what we call creation. Those whose energies are cosmically connected are what the Quran calls living, hayyun, alive. When you read the Quran and you come across the word life or the living, stop thinking that it's a reference to those people who have oxygen being breathed and let out through the lungs and the nostrils. When the Quran mentions living, it's speaking to your energies. It's speaking to your vibration. It's speaking to your frequencies. So those whose energies are cosmically connected are what the Quran calls hayyun, or living. Those whose energies are not connected are considered to be maytun, or dead. And Allah says, do not speak of my servants as being dead. They are living, they are alive, although you cannot recognize it. You can't recognize it because you're not on a matching frequency. So this is not talking to everyone. This is talking to the schemers. A copy of a document can become so obscure that it can bear little resemblance to the original. The original print is the parent, and you can see the word print basically staring at you through the word parent, because the parent is the original print. Whoever the parent of human beings are, people say Adam and Eve, or, whoever you think was the first human, they are the parent. And from that point on, whatever they were capable of printing out became the children. So here you have a natural connection between parent and child, which the Quran speaks about. We'll go over that on a different day. The Quran calls it the mystic ties of parent and child. The copy eventually loses its connection with the quality of the original. When you keep manufacturing copies artificially, we're not talking genetics now, we're talking machinery. We're talking at the copy office. We're talking with the copier. And we keep churning out these copies that at first glance, you don't have a problem with it. But do you know that there are some documents that if you were to present a copy to the people who are asking you for your paperwork, they would not accept it? You might not even be able to tell the difference between the copy and the original. But the people who have eyes for that kind of detail, they will say, you have to bring me the original copy. That's how they call it, the original copy of this document. As time accrued, we have lost the ability to resemble or reassemble the original. We are now witnessing the world through limited vision as opposed to the magnified cosmic lens created for us by our source creator. We were created to be able to access cosmic lens, which give us cosmic vision. And cosmic vision, when you're looking through those eyes, you cease to see those artificial things that limit us and that separate us. Our limited vision or view of things is now a mere peephole. And peepholes limit the view of those who use it as a means of identifying someone on the other side of the door. When you look through a peephole, someone's ringing, someone's knocking. You're using the peephole as a sort of protection for yourself. I don't know who this is. Let me see who this is. But when you look out, you only see the peephole view of the person who more than likely is looking back at you. But that's not a sufficient view if you're going to determine what the person actually looks like, actually is intending to do. You can't see the pistol on the side hip of that person who's ringing your doorbell. So the peephole is severely limiting. Most of the vision is wasted due to the inability to utilize an expanded scope. As human beings, we have been created by the source creator to view things with an expanded scope. But that is an exercise that is to be enjoined upon people who have that interest. If you don't have an interest in seeing the whole picture, you'll never see the whole picture. You'll never be able to figure out these puzzle pieces that we're calling human life because you won't know what section corresponds with the other section and then with the other section until you get a whole picture. This is one of the main issues for human life in our day and time, especially. And this is what racism, sexism, classism, and all isms actually are. They are created tools which are designed to limit our view and diminish our insight. Human essence is related to the person, the person. A population of people, people, are considered to be the public. So there is the human that Allah created, the humus mind, obeying all of the behaviors that are necessary to grow plant life. We need humus soil in order to grow plant life. But people is a mere peephole. And it shows you much less. And even incorrect dimensions, depending on the type of glass the peephole is peeping through or allowing us to peep through. So there's a distorted view of the person on the other side of the peephole. And sometimes the person on the other side will put their hand up to the peephole so that you can't see who's looking at you. So people are represented by the public. And the public are people without human essence. You need full vision in order to take in what the human being is as a totality. You need to know more than what he or she is as a flesh and blood person, a person of physical pleasures. You need to know more than what this person is as a particular cultural group because they're wearing the attire of a cowboy. The attire is not that which is going to determine the human essence of who this person is who's looking back at you, looking at them. You have to have the kind of vision that can give you a total view, a holistic view of what this person is. And when you gain that holistic view, you are having insight now into the essence. So human essence is essential. It's practically the same word. Your essence is that which is essential for true human life. And people without a human essence are no different than cattle or mindless workers. No different than cattle or mindless workers. That's what cattle are. That's what a work animal, a pack animal, even a horse, as beautiful as they might be, they're considered to be by the farmer or by the rancher. Just a mindless worker who we give instructions to. We don't let them just follow their own mind in the field. We give them their instructions. And they operate for those who want to corral them, who want to milk them and then send them off to the slaughter once they've gotten older and unavailable for work. The people who have been trained to follow fads are who I am referring to now as the copycat people. A copy of a thing will eventually diminish. The words fad and fade are essentially the same word. Our entire culture is now fad-based, which means that we have been reduced to fodder. And all of these words are from the same root essence. And the elite love to call the fodder people food for them to feed off of. We, as common people, are food or fodder for certain classes of the elite, meaning those who see themselves as being over and above your essence. When there is nothing else to gain from these people, we are then sent off to the slaughter through drugs, alcohol, and promiscuity. As a quick example, there was a point in the history of the American experiment as the forefathers of this country used to refer to it. They used to refer to America as the American experiment. And I think now you can become more appreciative of what is meant by experiment when you understand how you are being viewed. The so-called African American people were once the target population that were being created as food for the ruling population. They made their livings off of our labor. and when we were considered to be no longer useful. And that has happened mostly in recent times, I think since the 60s and 70s, if I'm correct, when the so-called African American people were no longer considered to be those who we could put on the plantation and do the work of the sugar cane and the tobacco, and when we were no longer useful because of the migration of people from the South to the North due to the invention of the um, what was that
Cotton
invention?
gin.
The cotton gin. Yes, thank you. Yes, due to it's interesting, right? The cotton gin. So we were considered to be no more useful in that sense, in the industrial sense. Once those things were able to be done mechanically, in our day and time, much of the labor now is not so much done mechanically. They've conquered that particular level of slavery, and it is slavery. If you're not the one making money off of your own labor, it's slavery. When they were able to find other people on this planet who would do similar work or the same work or even more work than the so-called African American used to do as a slave, then the masses, the populations of people, those who were seeing life through a peephole because you didn't know what the world was, you hadn't yet circulated the earth enough to know what else was out there besides what you were looking at. So because you're no longer useful, you have been slated for the great elimination. Now, the word elimination has several meanings in the English language. One of the meanings is related to somebody getting rid of something, eliminate. But a medical meaning for definition, not definition, for elimination, a medical meaning for elimination is to pass a stool, to defecate. That's called eliminating. And when you eliminate, it's done through a peephole. I think most of you might have just opened your eyes a little bit wider after hearing that because you can clearly see the connections in this logic. You defecate through a peephole. Think about that. So I need you to understand that once you have reached the level where you are no longer viable, when you are no longer useful, then it's just a matter of time before you are sent to the slaughter, along with the majority of sheep and cows or whatever you want to participate in the freedom designed by Allah for true humans. If you do not want to participate in that freedom, then you will be sent off to the slaughter with the sheep and the cows and such. But that choice is yours. That's a choice that you will have to make. So I'm about to conclude the points that were being made related to this particular topic of the original humans and the copycats. The original humans and the copycats. In psychology, they have certain terms that are used to describe the work that the psychologist is doing when talking to the people, when analyzing the situation for the people who come to them with their problems. And they call that process of looking or investigating the life of that people or those persons who are coming to them with these problems. And a problem is simply that which we need to probe the limb in order to understand. That's where the word problem comes from. You have to probe, meaning investigate, the limb, but the limb is limited because the liminal mind, which is what they're referring to as psychologists, that liminal mind is limited between one thing and another. It's just the crossroads between one level of mind and the next level. In this class that we've been teaching you, we call it the space between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. That's what's called liminal. And I'm sure all of you have heard the word subliminal, because once you cross the original limit, which is the conscious mind, conscious thinking, conscious behavior, conscious thinking, and you cross over into what ends up being your subconscious mind, where all of your secrets are stored, where all of your motivations are manufactured. When we say subliminal, it means beneath the liminal. And when you begin to fall beneath the liminal, you're falling into a territory that you do not have conscious control over. And this is how the majority of this planet is manipulated. They're manipulating the man. Manipulated. Man means mind. So you need to know these very important concepts, these very important terms, that the world, on the most part, is manipulated subliminally, meaning subconsciously, beneath the limits or the liminal mind. In the Quran, there's a scenario that is painted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to discuss this same phenomenon. And in the Quran, Allah speaks of it as three different levels of the nafs, of the person or personality. The first level is called nafsin lawama.
Nefsi Amara.
Thank you. I'm sorry. My mistake. Yes. Nafsin la'amara. That's correct. That's the first stage. The second stage is called nafsin lawama. The third step or stage is called nafsin mutma'inna. So let's just take a quick look at the first stage. Nafsin la'amara. Amara is from the word amara, and it gives us the word amir, which means commander. So that's the part of the soul, the nafs, the mind, if you will, that gives instructions, that gives commandments, actually. In the human world of psychology, that level of the mind is called your instincts. What the instincts are giving to you or telling to you is it's not a choice. It's not a choice. Especially as an infant, it's not a, when that infant has to go boo boo. Yeah, that's it doesn't matter where he's at. It doesn't matter what she's doing. That baby is going to boo boo to no end and probably laugh in your face as you're trying to clean it up. Because the instincts, the internal sticking, that's what an instinct is. It's an internal prodding that forces you to go in a particular direction that nature is causing you to go in until that nature becomes better trained. So it's an internal stick or instinct. It's happening inside of you. So that's the first level of the mind, the instinctive brain. In other words, called the reptilian brain, because the reptilian's brain is based on fight or flight. Those are instincts. You don't have time to sit and plan when it comes to the instinctive mind. If someone is coming to get you, someone is coming to do some harm to you or your family, you do not have time to sit and think about it. You don't even have time to figure out how you feel about it. You have to make split second decisions in most cases when you're dealing with the instinctive mind. Split second decisions. The second level, lawama, is the one that we want to point to. Lawama gave us the word liminal. Lawama gave us the word lemon. How about that? Why? Because when you taste a lemon, you immediately back up a little bit off of the taste. Very few people can just wholesale bite into a lemon as though it's an orange or a banana. You know, those things are pleasant to taste. But the lemon, you have to experience some caution. So nafsin lawama is considered to be the cautionary soul, the soul that has to pay attention to details that affect its sensory operation. It's the soul that they say is cautionary concerning its rights and its wrongs. Is this right to do this? Is this appropriate for this particular situation that I'm in? And if not, they'll back up from it. And that's how that works. That's the midbrain, otherwise known as the limbic brain. Then you have nafsin al-mutma'inna, which is the level of the soul that introduces you to Allah's Jannah. Enter the garden amongst my ibad, Allah says in the Quran, amongst my workers. See, a lot of people think they're going to heaven to sit and put their feet up and just lay and be fed by servants. How can that be heaven? What are servants doing in heaven? What, what are they doing there feeding you? They're in heaven with you. Yes. Sister Key said, attended to by 72 virgins. Boy, that sounds like hell to me. It's a 72 virgins. What they've given you is 72 versions of a lie. There's nothing in the Quran that speaks about 72 virgins. But there are some hadith that we can point to where the explanation for that can be better understood. In one of the so-called hadith, they mention 72 sects, sects, that there will be 72 varying groups of Muslims, if you will, but only one of them will be legitimate. That's a good question to ask yourself. Are you in the legitimate group? Or are you in the group that's going to be condemned for punishment? Now, you all know that I don't go with these hadiths in the way that they presented them as literal facts. They're not literal facts. Most of the hadith that have been presented through these books are actually the wily thoughts of so-called scholars who were trying to prove their scholarship, but needed the name Muhammad to push them through. These hadiths were not new. Most of the people who had accepted al-Islam back in that day had rejected these hadiths. And the scholars got together, along with even some of the most famous Sahaba. And they said the people aren't going for our teachings. They're not buying into what it is we're trying to present to them as knowledge. So here's what we need to do. Put Muhammad's name on it. And watch how fast we can move this product. So they were by people who were trying to prove their scholarship, by people who were trying to prove that they knew more than the next person concerning the teachings of the Quran and whatever it is we wanted to add to it, because it wasn't even centered around what the Quran was teaching. These so-called hadith was centered around what foreign scholars were trying to implement, particularly the Persian people, the people of ancient Iran, who invented most of this, if not all of it, because not one single so-called hadith comes out of Arabia. Every single hadith that I have investigated has its origins in ancient Persia. The other thing that has its origin out of ancient Persia is the first dictionary called El Ain. Be careful if you see that name on something. Ain means the eye, the straining eye. Why would you call it dictionary? I mean, you've heard of the evil eye, haven't you? Why would you call it dictionary? The eye, as though you're presenting to us some invaluable insight. But the meanings for those words are meanings that grew out of the Persian understanding of sound alike words. So when they told us what a mu'min was, they were comparing it to what a mu'min was in the sound alike language of Urdu, of Farsi, and even of Sanskrit. That was also included in this original understanding of what these words meant. This is a beautiful thing when you learn to understand it. A beautiful thing that's unfolding for us now here in 2025, where we're now finally able to absorb the level of information that's necessary for understanding this phenomenon in language and in history. We don't have to guess anymore whether this is legitimate. The epitome and the epicenter of legitimacy is in fitra-based connections for letters in the Quran, not in just the Arabic language, in the fitra-based Arabic language. So if you can't find it in the fitra, that's a problem. Because as the commercial says, it's not nice to fool Mother Nature. It's not. Nature will come back at you with a vengeance. So moving right along. That's the part one presentation of what I had to say to you today. And I hope that you have enjoyed this presentation and that you have gotten much out of it. And I'm going to open up for just a few minutes to take just a few questions concerning anything that you might want to say regarding this particular lesson. And please try to make it regarding this particular lesson. Try to pinpoint what it is you're asking about and what it is you're making a statement concerning. We want to be able to get the most out of these presentations, and that can happen when you ask pinpointed questions about the presentation. You can always email me if you have just a regular question or something that only you are interested in knowing about. That's what the one-on-ones are for. And you see, we've been doing a great job at presenting those to you. I'm surprised myself at the level of information and knowledge that is being shared through those one-on-one conversations with not just the registered students, but anybody can have a one-on-one conversation. Just go to my website, nonetics.org, and make an appointment. You can have 30 minutes, you can have 60 minutes, but you'll get a chance to answer, or for me to answer, or address any question you might have pertaining to the Quran, though I don't want to talk about Freud and Carl Jung. And yeah, come on, you got plenty of books out there that'll give you the answers to that. But you don't have plenty of books out there that are going to give you the answer to Nunetics and all of its many questions. So I turn the microphone back over to William, and he can fend some of these questions, and we'll get those answered, and then we'll get out of here. Thank you for listening.
We have Abdul C. We have Adam, have Karima, and then Rayford. So we'll start with Abdul C. Go ahead, brother.
Yes, peace, everyone. Imam, the copycat. We know we got a lot of copycats out here. Who is maybe the leading copycat? Is it the propaganda machine? Is it the is it the scholars that presented God to us? Is it the government? Is or all of the above?
You answered your own question. you, you better know it's anybody who has presented so-called reality to us, but that reality does not correspond with Allah's fitrah.
Mhm.
So it could be your mama, doesn't have to be president, whoever, or the governor of whatever. Those are the ones we look at because those are the ones who they designed the peepholes for us to see through. See, when I was getting to the point of the word analyze, analyze is just a way of saying anal eyes. They have the whole world of psychoanalytic thinkers called psychiatrists.
Mm.
They have the entire field of psychiatrists looking for your problems through anal eyes.
Mhm.
That means they're only going to see but a peephole with what your situation is, and then they're going to prescribe a drug. They're not going to tell you to change your behavior. They're going to say, take this pill,
Mm.
and we can deal with the rest of this psychotic episode you seem to be having. Because that field is a money-making field. Very few of those people know how to solve your human behavior because most of them don't study what a human being actually is. We described it earlier, what a human actually is. This world is lost, and only nature and the study thereof can bring it back to its center and central focus.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right,
Well, thank you
Adam.
for that question.
Adam.
Thank you. How is the word illumination fit with the word, consonantally speaking, with the word illumination? Is the I considered a of negation?
That's a great question. Elimination, whenever you see the E on the beginning of a word, it simply means that which is attempting to exit or leave out. When you see the word in at the beginning of a word, it's talking about that which is attempting to get in, inside, into. So eliminate simply means that the force is sending things out of something. In this case, it would be the body in the case of an elimination. Illumination, as you're asking, is a different phenomenon because now you're talking about the word lumen. That's a word by itself. Illumin means that which stands as leader over the lumen or the luminary, that which guides and directs the lumen. Lumen simply means light. So there's a body of knowledge that can be used to lead people because of the level of knowledge, which we're calling illumination. And not many people on this planet are illumined, but the ones who are very significantly advanced. And most of them, we don't know their names. I know a lot of their names, but I'm not going to point you in the direction of those names if you don't have yet the appreciation for what it is they're illuminating. And you don't have that because you don't like to study. I'm talking to most people now. You don't like to study. So I'm not going to spend my time dropping a whole lot of names, of people that you won't even look up. Some of you will, most of you will not. You'll depend on Instructor Bilal to give you all of the information. And I refuse to do that ever since I started teaching 30 something years ago. I never give you the whole story because then you won't have the dignity. Why should I give it to you? I can give it to somebody else who's going to go hunt the rest of the information and earn that dignity. They're going to feel better than you. They earn that dignity. See, yes, the instructor sent me to this and he sent me to the dictionary of etymology. And then when I got there, I found this other dictionary and I can add to what the instructor was saying. Now, that's the kind of student I want. Bring me something that I didn't give you. That's a challenge. You got some new people in here who are doing that already. Just read the chats carefully. They're already doing that. And I love it. But I know we've been through a particular level of conditioning as people who are native to this country. We've been through a particular level of conditioning that has to be unraveled. When you look at the mummy in the movie, that's us. And as soon as you think you've gotten one layer of wrapping off of the body, here's another layer. It's just not as dirty as the top layer. But we have to keep on unraveling the stuff that has been put on us for several hundred years, culturally speaking. Several hundred years in terms of our misdirection when it comes to language and what things mean. And it's so deep amongst the so-called African American people. And pay attention to the fact that I say so-called. That means that's not really who you are. But it's so deep among us that I can continue to call you Black people and you just accept it with glee. You accept it with joy. Oh, the Black people. That's us. The Black people. Man, have you ever looked up Black in the dictionary? There may be one word out of the 10 words that Black means that's a good, Black Friday or something. That's about the only good use of the term Black in the dictionary. But you go and look up the word white, you're going to see white lie. That's a lie that's not so bad. You're going to see a lot of nice things connected to white. and a whole lot of negative things connected to black. So why would you in your own good conscience forget what leaders are telling you to do? Just in your own sense of dignity, why would you continue to call yourself black? And we don't have no alternative. I spent the whole 2 hours just now giving you the alternative.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to repeat it. You'll have to look at the repeat of this session to get some indication as to what you should call yourselves. But see, you're looking for people to dictate to you who you are. Who you are is right in front of you. You just have to, it's always been with you, who you should call yourself, what you should call yourself. You just need to wake up and look at it. It's not hidden from you. It's not something that they took and they hid it over in some cave of Qumran and you have to go excavate. And you don't have to do any of that. All you have to do is remember.
Mm-hmm.
It's in your soul what you should be called. But you let this false world of academics shroud your vision and cloud your vision. So just come out of that. You have the most obligation in this world. I'm still talking to so-called black people. You have the most obligation in this world to stand back and almost be quiet and think about your world, your life, your mission. Because if you don't come into a level of excellence that is at least on par with the average one of these ethnic groups, some of whom are living in caves of Qumran, some of whom speak 5 languages, and they're as poor as dirt, but they celebrate their life. Here we are with gold and chains and money in the pocket and have no clue about the value of who we are as a human person because you're still a human doing and have not reached the level of a human being. Now, you might say, I heard that a human being was a monster. That's one of the meanings, one of the so-called definitions that's given in what's called Black's Law Dictionary. Human, it says sea monster. And then it's a sea monster, SEA. But it tells you to see the word monster. But most of us don't know what they mean by monster.
Hmm.
Monster is just 2 words put together based on the word moon star. Now, I want some of you people who call yourselves Muslims to think about that. Monster equals moon star. Who else has a symbol in the world that's a moon and a star?
Mm-hmm.
Surprise, surprise. So you are the
The
monster.
Masons, the Shriners.
They got it from you.
Yeah.
That's right, Adib. They got it and put it on the front of the Egyptian fezzes and all of that, star and crescent, star and crescent. Even though it existed prior to that, prior to the dawn of al-Islam in this world, they had the moon and the crescent as signs. It was actually the moon and the star Sirius. They had different iterations of it throughout history, but it was never supposed to be your flag. I'm taking the time to break this down because this is important for people who call themselves Muslims. It was never intended. You can't prove it by the Prophet Muhammad. You can't prove it by anything that happened in the history of al-Islam before or after the demise of Muhammad. It was after the demise when this religion reached Turkey that we began to see the star and the crescent as a symbol for Muslims pop up. The Christians were raising their cross. The Muslims felt as though they needed a symbol to raise. And as soon as that happens, here comes the little creature. This is in many fairy tales. A little creature comes by who says, I have the answer for you. Just follow my way and I'll show you the way to go. And a whole nother people popped up. I'm not going to say who, and began to present the star and the crescent as a viable symbol to defeat the cross. It's one of the shrewdest manipulations of language in world history. How we got the star to the point where the star and the crescent is on just about every Islamic flag in the world, maybe except for one or two. I think Saudi doesn't have it, and maybe one other country does, but all of the rest of them, they have that as a symbol for their deen, for their religion. So without going deep into the woods or deep into the whatever they call that, about that, the weeds, I think they call it, without going deep into the weeds, I think what I've said is sufficient enough. And you can just Google, that's a simple Google search. How did the star and crescent become the symbol of Muslims? Just Google that and you'll be there for another 3 days just trying to figure out what happened. So you can't always go with what the majority is saying about anything anymore. The majority, as the Quran says, will lead. Allah says it very gently. He says, most of them do not know. They don't have ilm. They don't have knowledge. They don't have investigative skills to be able to determine these simple things that they should have known. So that's how that goes. I'm ready for another question.
Okay, Karima.
Well, I'm just responding to the word black, and I'm looking at it on three different levels where we evolved through, and also it's also connected with spiritual elevation. But I'm not my that's not my question. My question was is I see in the word person some benefit that I'm looking at it from looking at it numetically, and also I see in the word person is that OP, which we know is an opening to your consciousness. So I'm going to put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So we see two dynamic words, person and people. And if you study them, you'll come with a lot of benefit from it. That's what I'm looking at it that way.
Yeah. Now, let me tell you what to do when you're studying. Yeah, let me give you some insight into how to study some of these words. As you know, throughout history, words have accrued multiple meanings.
Right.
The basic idea behind many words that contain the letters OP is related to the I. That's what it's related to, the I, E-Y-E. And more than likely, the open I. You have words opulence. You have the word oppress. Any word, like I said, just look in the average dictionary. You'll find a lot of words that begin with OP, but OP originally referred to vision, to how you in particular see things, not how the world sees things. Not a vision that's going to show you what you should be seeing when you look at this thing. It's going to just show you how you should see this thing, just like how you should see the person on the other side of your door through this peephole, right? So this is where they came up with the term opinion. Well, that's just your opinion based on how you see it. I don't have to agree with it.
Oh, that's correct.
But what about el-haq? What about that viewpoint? The viewpoint of a truth that covers everything in the natural world. That's a truth that corresponds with any place you look, anywhere you look, anything you hear. It has to be able to fit into the prism, if you will, of how creation itself sees things.
Mm.
Creation has vision also.
Mm.
It does. If you plant a plant and put it on your windowsill, the plant will grow towards the light. Most people know that. So there's a particular way that even a plant sees things based on the light that's put in front of it. See? So look up those words for yourself as your homework, and maybe you'll even attempt to do a 15-minute presentation on your findings. That's what I'm looking for.
Yes, I did, and that's why I was looking through the word black with the vision
Mm-hmm.
of that.
Yeah. See, these words have dual meanings. Because I'm presenting black to you as something you might call negative, don't think that that's the limit of its meaning. I always tell my audiences that everything in creation began as neutral. Y'all remember me telling you that? It began as neutral. Neutral means that it has no moral connections at all, and that human beings attach moral meanings, moral judgments, moral decision making. That's our creation, morals. And I give as an example, if you fall off of a building or a bridge and you're a certain amount of feet up and your head hits the rocks or you fall in the water and you drown, it doesn't mean you were a bad person morally. It means that your body submitted to a particular uh, dynamic that anybody who falls from that, yeah, anybody that falls out of that tree or off that mountain or off the, off that bridge, and especially if you can't swim and now you're in the water and you're kicking and splashing and screaming and getting water up your nostrils, you don't have to be Adolf Hitler to be punished by that, because you're not truly being punished in the literal sense of punishment. You just get hurt, you maybe die, and that'll be the end of you. But that's the creation. The creation is amoral. It's not immoral, and it's not moral. It's amoral. You have to apply the moral. So if it's a bad person that happens to, we say that God got him. God judged them. Well, what if it's a good person? What about the babies that die or that are killed? Allah asked that question in the Quran. For what reason was I killed? Does that mean the baby was immoral? No, the baby was submitting to the dynamics of material creation and its influences. So as you can see and hear, yeah, we are products of a dual system of learning. One of those systems demands that we view things from a neutral positioning. That's what nature is. Nature and neutral are the same word. You eat a poison berry off of a poison bush, guess what? Has nothing to do with your moral principles, because nature is neutral. Nature has taken out species in history, not a person. Nature has taken out whole species, but the human being has been given the ability to regulate what they consider to be the rights and the wrongs of things. The human has been, not the human doing, because he's just responding. We're talking about the true human being, because it's the being part of your human existence, the being part, that is making decisions that no other creature on this planet can make except you, if you are in true human form. So humans bred dogs to be much less vicious than the historical and the original dog was. The original dog, if you've ever seen the original dogs of Africa, you know they were like wolves. You couldn't train them, tame them to be sheep herders. They were like they would have eaten up all the sheep. The human has been given the ability to go in there and tame those creatures.
Mm.
Allah calls that when he uses the term and na'am for the cattle, you can tell clearly that that's the where the word animal came from. And anam, al amam, and al anam, ana mal, animal. You can tell that's where the word came from. You don't have to do any deep dive search with it, but it is talking about the animals that can be trained. The sixth surah is speaking to the cattle. And the cattle are the most prevalent animals that we know of who can be trained, number one, and whose natures can be softened. Their nature can be trained and softened to the point where you at first were not even able to ride these creatures like the wild horses, the stallions you've seen. But you can train that animal. You can put it through a certain regimen, through a certain discipline, and that animal will bend down and bow down to let you on top of it and put a saddle and everything else and blinders. They let you do all of that after that because they're able to be trained. Well, that's supposed to be the human being. So Allah uses the term al-an'am to indicate that, but he also puts something in al-Fatiha to give us further reference. An'amta. Anybody know where that is in al-Fatiha? Recite it if you do.
أنعمت عليهم
Yeah, give me the whole line though.
غير المغضوب.
Back up.
عليهم ولا
No, you've
الضالين.
gone too far. Give me what comes right before that.
Oh, um,
إياك نعبد.
Need
Mhm.
you serve and do we beseech for help. Guide us on the right path, the path of those applying,
إياك
applying
نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا
favor
الصراط الصراط
and not the one
صراط
that do.
الذين أنعمت عليهم.
There you go. Tell me what that means.
Got us on the straight path,
Keep going.
the path of those who has not garnered the source creator's wrath.
Beautiful. No, no, no. You used the wrong word. Well, yeah,
Favor,
that's how they. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. That's how they translate
No, 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 no. Of his
it.
favor.
صراط الذين. Yes, صراط الذين أنعمت
and Amta and upon.
عليهم. That's all I want. Hold on
Okay,
right there. Let me break
okay.
that down. Sirat, what is Sirat?
Straight,
Straight what?
straight path,
Okay, stop there. So a
Road.
path is
linear.
leading. Okay, very good. A path is leading from one point to another point.
Mm-hmm.
Sirat, they call it the bridge over hell when they try to
Mm,
describe it outside of the Quran. The bridge over hell, which
mm.
everybody will have to pass over before the judgment. So just keep in mind it's a bridge, right? So the bridge for the Sirat al-Ladina and Amta alayhim, the way or the path of those who have been of the people who are called or referred to as an amta. Now, an amta is a past tense term. It means that this is you in the past. This
mm,
happened already. An
mm,
amta alayhim. They have had the an amta al amta, that grace that they translate grace. It's already happened for you. The civilizing effect that Allah wanted human beings to come into, it was already here. I didn't need your sheikh to give it to me. I didn't need my mother to tell me how to act if I would just follow my own fitral principles. The guidance he put in my nature, isn't that what Muhammad was doing? And they'd say he was born an orphan, and they give you all the other scenario to try to tell you, hey, this is not something you acquire. This is something that is native to your very being.
Mm.
Civilization. You don't need parents to be civilized. You need people who teach you incorrectly to be demons in the world, because that doesn't come with the package either.
Mm.
The package is neutral. But Allah has put enough stimuli out here in the world of created things so that your common sense, remember we talked about that? Your common sense catches on. Oh, okay. The majority of what I need to be concentrating on is in this direction, it's not in the other direction. And that by itself will eventually lead you to the right thing to do. So there's no morality in terms of a particular idea that we have to come into. I have to be a socialist, or I have to be a communist, or I have to be a capitalist, or I have to be any of these other ideas to be good. No, all you have to be is oriented towards that which is beneficial to self and to others. Khair,
Mhm.
right? Just the word khair means beneficial.
Mm.
It's not just good, it's beneficial
Mhm.
because it adopts itself and adapts itself to the best inclinations that Allah has created within your own nature. You're following your nature. When you teach that nature, then you come into nurture. No one is being nurtured until you teach about the ramifications of just following nature blindly.
Mm.
How many times have you heard about people who were in nature, the people of the Amazon or whoever, the Native Americans, or they tell you these stories all of the time, that this is how they learned how not to do some things, that by watching people do those dumb things and then they die. It'd be that crude. But that's how most people on this earth learn before they had schools to teach you and professorships and scholarships. And before all of that was teaching you, and that many times doesn't help you to not do stupid things, right?
Mhm.
But before you had that, you just did things and looked at the consequence.
Trial and error.
Trial and error. And then when you got the error part, you went and told somebody else what not to do. Hey, why are you going to be in that area? To watch out for the wolves. Or watch out for those berries. They're poisonous. So our so-called morality is accrued through the things that we learn to stay away from or learn to do
Mhm.
because of trial and error. And that's what makes the human being superior, if I could use that word, to other living beings. You are superior because no other creature can be taught.
Mhm.
No other creature learns through the acquisition of information. That's why the deer gets caught by the lioness every time. That thing has been chasing the deer for thousands of years, and it gets caught every time because it does not have the kind of nature that can learn from its past. It can't go home and have the daddy deer say, "Don't do this," or you're going to get eaten up by these animals. Can't do. They're going based on what we mentioned earlier, instinct. That's all they have to save them, instinct, and some emotions, how they feel about a particular thing that's coming their way. So they only have instincts and emotions. The human being has been crowned. That's why the Bible calls us the crown of creation, because we've been crowned with this magnificent uh, cortex, this neocortex. All right, ready for another question?
Okay. You just gave me a new appreciation for the collective consciousness.
Yes,
Wow.
yes, that's what
Yeah.
that represents.
Yes, 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 yes.
Your collective consciousness has been responsible for healing people.
Yes.
There have been countless stories by medical people who are not necessarily religious. They said that this man was on his way out. He was about to check out of here. And a group of people came to his bedside, 10 of them, 12, and they started to pray. And they didn't say they was making salat. They didn't say they were doing a dua. They were just Christians praying, just to show you that the frequency is indiscriminate. There's no such thing as a Muslim frequency, a Jewish frequency, a Christian frequency. We get all caught up in this language that divides us and separates us. Like if I don't say Jesus in this prayer, it ain't gonna work. Well, if I do say Jesus, then Allah or God's not going to accept it. You don't understand how frequencies work. You don't understand the nature of energy. You don't understand how vibrations bring things to you and keep things from you, because we weren't taught this, William and others. We were not taught like that. We have had the worst experience when it comes to educating a creature on this planet. We have had the worst experience out of any creature on this planet. And we're the only creature that can be educated. And we still had a terrible time. And are still having a terrible time because people because people are manipulating us out of our inheritance, our excellence. That's a part of your excellence, to use your brain the way Allah created the brain to be used. All right, next question.
All right, Rayford, you got it, bro.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Okay, brother Imam, you had mentioned in your speech that those whose energies are cosmically connected are what the Quran calls living, and those who are not cosmically connected, it calls dead. But the question is, how do we know when we're cosmically connected?
That's a great question. You know, because you're following the fitra principles of breathing. Now, what do I mean by that? That sounds esoteric. It's not esoteric. It's practical. When you're breathing, as I mentioned in the lecture, you're taking in elements that sustain you. It's called oxygen, right? You're taking that in through these two portals that are connected, called nostrils. That air then is being converted. So you have to be a convert, don't you? You have to be a convert. That air is being converted into something that it's not actually, the air is not being converted. The oxygen is already what it is. The oxygen is being converted into something that your body cannot use, therefore you have to give it away. So nature teaches you zakah, what you call charity. Nature teaches that to you, but it gives you a stronger lesson in that if you don't get rid of it, it can kill you. And wealthy people will tell you that. You got a lot of wealthy people now. I forget who the latest one is. Oh, the latest one is Clint Eastwood. He's in his 90s. And he said, I'm giving away everything I own with no strings attached. I don't need anything back from these people. I'm gathering 300,000 people and I'm giving them $30,000 each based on the people who I feel need this money. He said, I'm not giving any, not even to my children. Now, I don't know what his relationship with his children is, but you got more than a few people, even Bill Gates, talking that kind of talk. My children get nothing. Probably because most of their lives, they did nothing. I don't know. I'm guessing. Their name is not on anything. I don't know. Why are they not getting anything? But the point is that these people, as they get closer and closer to death's door, there must be an angel or something speaking to them in their ear, whispering in their ear, hey, buddy, you don't know when. I let you live, God let you live for 90 something years. And you're going to leave here with $100 billion in your bank account. Really, Clint? So these people are seeking to do something because of the knock of common sense on their walls. It's getting closer, and the closer you get to death, the less you think about the material world and all of its trappings.
Okay.
So that process, I'm sorry, I just want to end that by saying that this process that is give and take is how you know.
Mhm.
When you see people who just take, see people sitting around just getting fat on welfare that they don't need, getting fat on food stamps that they really don't need, getting fat on the government that they really don't. You should be out there working for yourself and making a living for yourself if you can. If you can't, then that's different. See?
Okay, brother, I want to ask a quick question, and I'll let you go. So this cosmically being cosmically connected thing. So that's like Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 177 in activity.
I'm sorry, you got to go back just a little bit so I can catch everything you said.
Okay, I was saying that this being cosmically connected thing
Yeah.
is like Surah 2 Baqarah, verse 177 being.
Okay, about the riches. Yeah, about the righteousness. Yeah. Okay, I got you
I just want to make sure that I'm understand what you mean when you say that those whose energies are cosmically connected are living, and those who are not are dead.
now.
So I was just trying to figure out what signifies or what actually categorizes a person that's cosmically connected.
Got you. Got you. So just be cognizant of what happens to living things and what happens to dead things. Living things have, if they're human especially, they have their own means of mobility, of getting around, getting their jobs done, hunting, doing whatever they do as a living creature. Dead people you have to carry around from spot to spot, from place to place. Dead people, the dead are not like the living. I think the Bible states that. The dead are not like the living. Even Jesus in the Bible put more emphasis on the living. He said, let the dead bury the dead. That sounds harsh, but that's a fact of reality. But it's not talking about your physical death. Your physical death, when animals die physically, they don't have funerals. Allah knows how to bury the dead. You don't see a bunch of pigeons around the city just died and they're still on the sidewalk. Where did these creatures go? They die. You understand? So it's a natural process that's built into nature itself that takes care of the dead. But again, as I said in my discourse, it's not even speaking about the physically alive or the physically dead. Stephen Hawkins, the scientist, was physically alive, although he was sitting up in a wheelchair speaking through a little tube. But he was one of the world's most brilliant scientists.
Hmm.
So was he alive or dead? If they had removed the tube, that would have been it. He wouldn't be able to communicate, and there might have been something connected to his lungs that he needed that wouldn't allow him to go on living as we know life. But it wasn't that, that was not the case. I hope that gave you somewhat of an answer. You have to study life to get most of these answers that I'm attempting to give you. You have to study the cycle. They call it the circle, but it's really the cycle of life. Who is your child? Who is your grandchild except you coming back to revisit? You're going to be different. You're going to look different because you're dealing with different circumstances, but it's just you. A DNA test will prove that plainly. You say, that ain't my son. Oh, yes, it is. Look at this test. That's you. You just came back to revisit with a few extra garnishments or garnishings or whatever, a few extra decorations or whatever. And you'll be growing up and they'll say, man, you did that just like your great grandfather. You skipped right over your father's generation and you're acting like your great grandfather. And he didn't even know him. Your great grandfather used to do that, used to wiggle his toes just like that. And he never saw his great grandfather or even his grandfather wiggle his toes. But that's in your in your genetics. Expressions on your face, genetically inherited. Allah says your life and your death are as one nafs, as one soul. And Allah said, you killing one person is the same as having killed all of humanity. We read these things in the Quran, but we're not giving them enough thought. And someone mentioned the word anfaq, nafaqa, and that's the word that Allah uses that they translate as spend. Spend in the way of Allah. All of us have heard that. But how many of us have heard the translation that instead of saying spend, for us in our day and time especially, we should be saying invest, because that's what the word means. You're not supposed to just spend money. Every opportunity you get, when you get money, that opportunity should be to invest. What does that mean? When I put this in, I'm going to get this back. And many times way over what I put in. How do we know that? Because that's what your seed does when you plant it in the ground, right, William? And
Right.
Sean and others who are farmers. You don't get back just that one seed you put in there. You get an apple tree with hundreds of seeds. That's why he points you to nature to teach you. Anfiku, spend. No, invest. Okay.
All right.
Next question. Thank you, Rayford.
Ahmed Hassan.
I'm going to try to
Okay.
keep my answers short from this point on. So go ahead.
Wait a minute now. Wait a minute now. Well, when I get on, it's gonna be short. Anyway, I'm just joking.
Because you got
Look,
access to me 24 hours a day. That's why.
look, I still Assalamu alaikum, peace and love
Alaikum
to
salam.
everybody.
Right.
I still would like, if possible, for people who maybe, I mean, we tell the people are told that the Quran is for all humanity. So there's lots of people who they don't know much about the Quran. And when you get to that, I still got the question about the verse that says, "Save yourselves and your families from the fire, whose fuel is men and stone." I don't think the average person really understand how that can be or should be interpreted.
Yeah, because we're not understanding the language. So we have to spend more time in this class on the actual language that's being used by Allah, because you'll see the word save in one context, and then you'll see it used in a different context, but it's both English when they say save, and we'll think that it's the same Arabic word that's being used, but it's not. So my point is that what anjahu means as save is not the same word that's being used for save in a different context or a different surah or a different ayah. This is why the Quran is not a book to be figured out on that simple. Why should it be? Why should the Quran be simple? What it should be is easy. But see, there's a difference between easy and simple.
Mm.
Easy is when you're following a particular method,
Mm.
like the mathematician follows. That stuff that William knows, I don't know what he's talking about when he's talking math. It's not easy for me to understand what he's talking about. He's got to break it down. If it were simple, I'd be able to figure it out with my brain. Because it's easy, it might be easy for him because easy is subjective. So I have to put my marbles together and say, well, wait a minute, let me start at point A and see how he got to point B. Because the Quran tells us that فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا, that indeed with the difficulty ease.
Mhm.
It didn't say comes ease. Comes means it happened later. Ma'al usri, it's immediate.
Mm. Mm.
It says with the difficulty. If somebody's with you, am I to expect them later on?
Mm.
Or when you get there and you say my cousin's with me, I'm expecting to see your cousin. So ma'al usri yusra.
Mm.
with the difficulty, ease. If we took that as a principle of living, our lives would be so much better because we wouldn't be over concentrating on the difficulty. That's what most of us are doing now. The next bill is due. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do? You're 70 something years old. You're 80 something years old. You're 50 something years old. What'd you do all the other times you ran into difficulty? You're still here. You say, yeah, but it was difficult. Well, but you're still here. And the reason you're still here is because the same principle for keeping you here is here now and was here 10 years ago when you had a similar difficulty. But because we don't know how to control the difficulty, we think that the difficulty is here to overcome us and overwhelm us. And it's not. You have to change frequencies. It's really that simple. Not easy. It's simple. Switch frequencies is like switching notes on the piano. When you hit this one, that's what you're supposed to hear. When you combine them two and three, hold on. When you combine them two and three at a time, that's when the harmonies begin. If you're doing something where the notes are not congruent, you're going to get disharmony. You're not going to want to hear the sound. And that's what our lives are. Either we're living harmoniously with our own selves, I'm talking, or we're living discordantly, where the chords are just, they're here, but they're not here. They're what you don't want to hear. That's what's called difficulty in life. I don't want to hear that. Go right ahead, Ahmed, and then I have to move on.
I just wanted to say real quick. You use the word simple a couple of times. Seems like the word simple and sample same thing, since it's not the whole picture. And the other person mentioned the word eliminate, and in that word eliminate is the word innate. So if E is going out, means out from the innate. Anyway, just an idea.
Yeah, that's a great connection. That's what I mean by me not doing all the homework. That's exactly what I mean. That's your finding. You put that in your book. That's how this thing goes. Absolutely. If you've asked a question already, put your hand down. I'm not going back. You had a chance. Okay. We got to close out. Got things to do here. All right. But thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kareem, I think is up.
Yes. Adu salam.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Yeah, my question goes back to when we were talking about. No, we didn't. We talked.
Are you
about
okay? You're breaking up a lot. Kareem, you're breaking up a lot. Your sound is breaking up a lot. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I just got a low bandwidth message.
Okay, I can hear you better now. So very nice.
Okay. Well, the thing about Surah, we know Surah is a path just like Sabil is a path, but Surah is a path that is vertical path. And along with that, it's an internal path. So we say in Al-Fatiha, to guide us to that path, the straight path, mustaqim, the straight path, so I think it would help us to reflect more on this path being an internal upright path, as we move forward. And as you mentioned, it says, and amta alayhim. And amta, as you mentioned, is what they call a perfect verb, meaning it's happened already.
Yes.
It's happened already.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just to somebody who hadn't done anything to Well, I don't think that we can really just make Allah do what He doesn't want to do. But Allah says He blessed this person. And I'm telling you, He gave him favor. And I'm thinking this favor is because He had already proven, you know, that He's the kind of person that can deserve this, or even, you know, take this favor and be good with it. Some people, you know, you can't give them good things and all this because they get the big head and all other kind of things. This ain't that kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what I'm saying. It's not that kind of person.
Yeah.
But
So
the more good
yeah.
you do, the more Allah blesses you with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This word sirat is consonantally connected with the word salat.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
certainly.
So this gives us more indication as to what the nature of this so-called straight path actually is.
Yes, sir.
The word sirat is consonantally connected to the English word star.
Mm-hmm.
Stars do not rise like this. Stars do not rise vertically. It's only vertical because of the end part of the journey where it's up and above. It's actually, if we were to give it its most proper translation, we'd have to say, guide us along the path of inclinations. It's really an incline, like a mountain,
Yes.
right? It's an incline where you just like growing up, you don't automatically become 21. It's an incline. You have to grow incrementally. So it's going up, but it's actually on a slant. It means almost the same thing as
Yes,
Hanifa,
sir.
right? That
Yeah.
it's not straight in the geometrical sense of the word straight.
Right.
Because in reality, as you know, there's no such thing as a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's always
Yeah.
just like the sun that comes through the trees as rays. There's no such thing as a straight ray. All of the rays come through on an incline. That should be a relief to people who think they need to be perfect.
Right. That's right.
They need to get it right every time. That's a relief, man.
That's right.
I can make some mistakes. Yeah, you were created like that.
That's
That's your
right.
nature to make mistakes because you're learning from the mistakes, and the learning is helping you to increase your worth. As long as you stick to the learning process while you're making mistakes. And as long as you don't keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. And Allah is so merciful that you can even do that. Make the same mistakes over and over and over again. Just
Still blessed.
stay away from the shirk. And you'll still be all right.
Right.
Something in your nature, something in your genetics, something in your past, something in your mind, in your subconscious mind. You don't know what's causing you to keep making that same mistake over and over. Some people make the same mistake over and over again with people they marry.
Yeah.
Not that they're marrying the same person over and over again, but the people they're marrying are almost exactly the same as the last one they divorced. Because nature has a way of teaching you lessons. It's all clocked into your fitrah.
Yes, sir.
But it doesn't make you a good person or a bad person. There are people in the Quran who were, oh my goodness. The wife of Firaun, of Pharaoh, is called the one of the most righteous women to have ever lived. And she married to that bad boy. It's trying to teach you something
Yeah.
about what we call good and and all of that and what the world calls good. My being bad does not impede upon your ability to be good.
You know, I recall a statement from Imam Muhammad. He said, we talking about a person being perfect. He said, "Oh, a perfect human being is the one who make mistakes."
That's right. That's your
then
perfection.
recover from those mistakes.
That's right. So look at the
Yeah.
word that Allah uses for perfect. He says he
Mm-hmm.
has perfected it and completed it. Look at those two words and you'll get the hint.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
You think the Quran is perfect.
Yeah.
It's not an adjective of the Quran. I'm starting trouble now. So that's not an adjective of the Quran. If it were perfect, it wouldn't be for you. It has to include all of the infirmities that you carry. If it's going to teach you, isn't that what Ibrahim did when he said, when he started looking at the stars and the moon and what did he say? Look, listen to the strong statement he made. هذا الأكبر. That's what he said about the sun. But look at what he said about the other ones. This is my Rabb.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he
Strong.
said. Yeah, that's what he said about the stars. He said, "Oh, this must be my Rabb." Then he saw a deformity or something that weakened that position. Then he looked at the moon, a bigger light in his eyes. He said, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is my Rabb." And the moon began to wane. And then he saw the sun and he said, "Hada al-Akbar." He said it twice. "Hada al-Akbar." This is the greater. We around here talking about Allahu Akbar. Allah never says Allahu Akbar in the Quran.
That's right.
Now, when I said perfect, I meant it. I mean it in the way that you used perfect when you were talking about Imam Muhammad's statements. Perfect means that it is perfectly designed for your situation.
Mm.
Not that it is perfect in and of itself. In and of itself, the Quran is neutral until you apply it morally, until you apply it scientifically, until you apply it mathematically. You have to be the one, no other creature can do it. You have to be the one to make those applications. Just like your computer won't work. It'll be a nice little piece of equipment, but until you design the applications for it, it's just a nice looking piece of equipment. Well, that's the human being. Allah designed the applications that we are to do trial and error learning with. Do this didn't work for me. Allah says don't eat pork, for instance, but he never says that it's haram. So I have to do trial and error now. Let me see if I eat this, am I going, what's going to, not the pork, but if I eat, for instance, seafood, a lot of people are allergic to seafood, but it's perfectly halal. But if I eat it, I'll die. My wife, she's severely, affected by any seafood food, tuna, it could be anything from the sea. She's got to keep a syringe with her.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? So it's not halal for her. It's not guidance for her to follow.
That's right.
It's trial and error. I'm allergic to this. I can't eat this. And then there are some starving people in Ethiopia and Eritrea who, if you gave them a good piece of pork, they'd be more than happy because they ain't got nothing else. And what I'm telling you is right there in the Quran. If you are urged on by starvation or whatever, but you're not supposed to eat it as though you're ready to fall in love with it. You're supposed to only eat as much of it as can keep you alive to get to the good stuff. You see? Yeah. So the Quran is a book of trial and error for the human mind. And all of it is not to be followed because you run into problems with much of what is in the Quran if you try to follow the 100% entirety of it. That's why the Quran is addressing specific people. Yeah, ayyuhalladhina amanu. It ain't talking to the other people. Yeah, ayyuhad nas. It ain't talking to these other ones over here. Yeah, or talk to the munafiq. You'll learn lessons, but you're not the munafiq it's talking to. We hope, right? We hope it ain't us.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's how that goes, my friend.
Alhamdulillah.
All right. We got a couple of other hands
Shukran.
raised, or at least one.
Just one
You're
more,
welcome.
Sean.
Okay.
Not so much as a question, but as a comment on a few things, other instructors' questions and whatnot. We always have good segues into things. But even like speaking with the Quran and understanding the language and how Arabic is interpreted specifically in the Quran. I know you mentioned before we spoke about, as it says in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Dhalika al-kitab la raiba fihi. Dhalika is that, not this. When you give something to somebody, saying, here, take this, you're giving it to them. They don't have to work for it. It's being given to them. But the Quran, in order for you to understand it, you have to go towards it. You have to open it and read it and study it. You have to go get it. If I say, where's your book? Oh, that book over there. You're getting up to go get it instead of me giving you it like that. But that's
Yeah.
just important of language. Um, and then we spoke about the seeds and how that's an investment because we spoke about investing. Monsanto is a company that their business is agriculture, but they have created seeds which are second generation inert that they call. So, for instance, if you have that seed, you cannot plant it and get any fruit from it. It'll grow into a tree, but it won't produce fruit. So that's how they manipulate things not to interfere with their investment. And again, like with the plant life, you mentioned the incline when you talk about Surat al-Mustaqim, and that's a mental inclination because if you are inclined to do something, most often, if you're serious about it, you would do it. But it also had the meaning of slope, which, like, say, if anybody that's a golfer, if you go to
Mhm.
golf at 8 o'clock in the morning and you get a score, like say you score 70, which is excellent, and you go later that afternoon and later that evening, your scores will never be the same because the grass is following the sunlight. It's
Mhm.
inclined toward where the sun is moving, and slope is a measurement of the difficulty of a golf course. So golfers know that. I don't know if they contributed to, plant life is a good example for human life, but a lot of signs are everywhere,
You can't
literally
escape.
everywhere.
You cannot escape the fitra.
And then with anamta, that comes from the root naam, where you
Hmm.
get yes, where you get cattle.
Hmm.
It's all there.
Yeah. Because an amta, as you said, gives us the word na'am, which most people, when they hear it, they know that it means an agreement or yes. It's either la, no, or na'am, yes. Right? Now, when you give the gesture for yes, and this is around the planet, not just for us, it's the head doing that. Okay. When you do that, it means several things. Number one, it means that you agree. That's you agreeing. If someone is saying something and they look at you and they say, "What do you think?" And people vote like that sometimes without raising their hands. They say, because it's an agreement. An agreement represents a continuity or a congruency, that you are in agreement with something. I agree with your vote. I agree with your premise. I agree with your whatever it is you agree with. And it makes you uh, not antagonistic or non-antagonistic toward what's being said. So when you speak outside of that logic, then you're talking about things that antagonize the situation. So even in the case of an Amtar representing uh, cattle in this case, or representing the nature in people to be agreeable. like the cow is agreeable. You can pull on that cow's, you know, you can pull on that cow all day long and he ain't gonna buck you. You have to
Gotcha.
do something horrendous to get the cow to kick at you because you're just milking him. That's his nature. That's how he's been trained. He's got to be trained for your touch. So it's talking about incidences in human life and human exchanges of behavior and other things that when we become more familiar with them, we become the better human. That's when you become the human being and not just the human doing. All of these things that are in the Quran are designed to help us become better beings, not just better actors in the world, people who do actions. There are animals that do actions similar to yours, animals that feed their young, animals that give birth. So it's not that specific action that qualifies us as being human. It's the ability to extract from that action the necessary things to help our human growth and development. That's what we're looking at when we're reading the Quran. What is going to help me be a better human being? If it's not helping me be a better human being, it's not in the Quran. You might think it is, but it's not. Because Allah says that He taught the human being that which he before was not knowing. So everything that's in the Quran is what you didn't already know. You said, I already knew that. Well, no, not on the levels that Allah is teaching it to you. You didn't know it. That's why it came, that's why it's revelation. That's why it's revealed, because you did not know this. Because you didn't even know there were different levels of your human development. You thought you were just this flesh and blood and maybe some feelings mixed in. And that's all they taught you were. That's what they teach us we are in school. We're just a mind mixed with some emotions. That's not all. You got 7 different layers of levels as a human. We'll talk about that some other time. But you got 7 different layers that need regulation. You understand? That the men are the maintainers over the women. الرجال قوامون على النساء. That's not talking about males and females that we can study and have been studying for eons. What the male does, what the female is capable of doing. We knew that already. Now Allah is going to add extra layers to what we know based on those prototypes. Those are prototypes that now become our classroom, our personal classroom. So Rijal gave us the word regal. Oh, well, the man must be kingly. No, that's not what that's saying. You're thinking with your inherited mind. You're thinking about your what you learned with the political mind they taught you. The man is the king. That's why they're wasting their time not having no king's day. Because they think that, no, everybody knows you ain't no king. Jamil, you'd be better off fighting against this idea of regalness in the human society amongst the people like the drug dealers and those people who think they're kings. You're fighting against a president who thinks he's king. We know he ain't no king. But how come you're not treating the drug dealer and the pimp like he's not a king? You walk right through there to get to the voting booth to vote in the one that you don't want to be king. You do not have your, not you, of course, talking to the public. You do not have your priorities straight. And you don't know how to dismantle and dislodge a problem because you're not aware of how the problem got to the proportions that it has gotten to. You can't start from trying to deal with the top layer. If somebody's trying to chop a tree down, they don't start with the branches and the leaves. They got to start at the base. See? And once you get enough chopping going on at the base, then sometimes the rest of it can just be pushed over. Just, timber. I don't have to chop and chop until I get to the leaves. I'm dealing with the base. So this is important for us to understand about our own growth and development so that we will not continue to waste time with what these political maneuverers and these political manipulators are teaching us is life. This ain't life. It's a waste of time watching the political scene right now. They're going to tell you something different every day, whatever favors their position. Why should I spend my energy and direct my vibration and my frequencies? Why should I channel them all into this low-based frequency stuff? That's going to keep me low-based, and that's going to keep me attracting only those things that are low-based that are trying to match my frequencies. Why am I boo-hooing, whining, and crying about it? I'm just going to attract other people who boo-hoo, whine, and cry. Imam Muhammad said goodness is on the rise. I don't know what these other people heard. You understand? I don't know what they heard. For me, what I do in the voting booth is my personal business, like it used to be in America. They used to be, hey, people tell you in a minute, yeah, don't ask me who it's my business who I voted for. Now everybody's quick to tell you, Mondami, Bush, Reagan. Yeah, we quick now because this system of manipulation needs to know everything that you are thinking. That's how they conquer you. If they don't know what you're thinking, they don't know your next move on the chessboard. So that addressed two or three different things, but I think they're all appropriate. And what you had to say was right on. And what you said earlier in your presentation, man, was spot on. I appreciated that discourse.
Well, I do have a quick alibi. I know the brother just raised his hand, but when you said recited about alam al insana malam ya alam,
Mm-hmm.
then we speak about being and doing, and you have the two verbs fa'ala, which
Mm-hmm.
is to do. Then you have amala, which is to work. But amala,
Mm-hmm.
it has two different concepts. One
Yes.
has an intent, and one has just that's just me being me.
Mm-hmm.
Then alama, so that's connected with amala. Alif lam mim, and then you have ain. No, not alif lam mim, but ain lam mim, and then you
Mm-hmm.
have ain mim lam. So that, I mean, they're probably
Yeah,
take a lot.
that tells you that amala is related to alama. That tells you that whatever kind of work or actions amala is speaking to, it's one that requires ilm.
Yes.
It's a prerequisite for that level of knowledge because there are different words for knowledge, for knowing something. There's shara, that's, right? So there are different words for knowledge. One means the information that is accrued by the intellect, that's amala. Another means the accumulation of information through your instincts. You learn instinctively also what to do, what not to do. Your instincts tell you go to the bathroom. Your knowledge checks it and tells you to do it in the diaper or in the toilet. Two different levels of information. You see, but these different words in the Quran are telling you where to direct it. Where to direct your energy is a better gooder. You hear me? Is a better way of saying it. And then there's a third level that we won't discuss today, but they're all in the Quran. In fact, I believe they're all in Surah 2, starting from the beginning. One is dealing with your perception and how we proceed based on the things that we perceive as information or as knowledge. But the strongest one in that group is the amal or the ilm, insight into the communication of meme, insight, ein, into the communication, lam, tongue, of whatever meme represents. And what is meme?
Morality.
And and what else that's even more important than that? There you go. People are putting it in the chat already. It's water, but what does water represent?
Emotion.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So you know what that tells you? That knowledge has more to do with your emotionality than it has to do with your very intellect. How you feel about something has more weight than what you think about something. What you think about something can change in a heartbeat. It can change because you're trying to sway me over to your opinion. So you're saying certain things to make me sway intellectually into your department or into your way of thinking, your party or whatever. But the real deal is how I feel about what you're saying that I could be hiding from you. So it's insight into the communication of your feelings. That's what real knowledge is. And those real feelings are represented through the turbulence that is created based on your feelings. This water, this meme is not just water. It's not flatlined water that's calm and peaceful. This water is turbulent, creating all those W's in the water, all those M's. If you look at W upside down, it's creating all those M's in you. And it's the turbulence that pushes the boats along. But it's the same turbulence that can cause disaster at sea. At sea. All right.
In the Ma'usri Yusra.
Yeah, that's right. We're back to that. There's a turbulence attached to it, but it moves the ships. It moves commerce. Do you see those M's in commerce? And the faster you can get to that land, the faster I can get to China, I can get those goods and be back on my way to America. So this is a beautiful session.
Indeed.
And I thank all of you for being with us today. So we're going to ask William to close out for us. And inshallah, in the future, we are inviting you to give your own presentations. I don't care when you started. Give your own presentations. Present what it is you believe you know, and we'll make the corrections along the way. Not all of it has to be broadcasted to YouTube. If I see anything that would make anybody look bad, I'm not going to include it on YouTube. I'll cut that part out. I'll cut the whole session out if it made you look that bad. But there's no such thing as looking bad in this class because you are attempting to grow in knowledge. I don't laugh at my plants when they first start growing. I don't mock them. Allah describes us as a green plant in the Quran. Green means naive, but he calls us green, and he talks about the benefits of the green plant. That's the plant that's just starting out. Sometimes the green plant will give you more than the advanced plant. That's a message for you scholars. I don't call myself a scholar. That's a message for you scholars. See? So we have to be circumspect about what it is we believe we know. What we know can change from day to day. It's not what you know, it's what you are vibrating and what your frequencies are registering. That's your real life. And when you find matching frequencies, they're going to be drawn to you. They will literally be magnetized to you. You want to make a friend? Learn to discipline your frequencies. You want a good mate? Learn to master your frequencies. The things that you know are not right in you, but you want them to always be right in somebody else. You're not even generous, but you're trying to bring somebody in your life who's generous towards you. And you're not even generous. Not a match. It's going to always be a conflict. See? So we have to draw people who will more than likely become matching frequencies, like your chakras. You don't see chakras trying to jump each other to get to the color they like best. No, they start where they are born and they develop That's how your frequencies are. You have to develop them. See,
That's a good note
I'm
to
done.
close on.
I'm done.
And we like to leave you with this, all of us, including myself, uh, to learn to modulate your frequencies better, to learn to discipline your frequency. Do this. Allah has blessed us with certain conversation in the way of introduction to each letter. It was 29 letters. Review them. Listen to the replay from today's class and preceding classes we've had in the past. But to monitor your own growth, listen to those letters on a regular basis, and uh, use them to stimulate your own thinking. But listening to them repeatedly will keep them on your mind. And as you are digesting this material for each letter, and it's no end to any letter, but by your keeping your focus on that on a daily basis, what you're doing is learning to actually master your own frequencies, to discipline your own frequencies. And as you do that, that's how you recalibrate your own sensitivities. And this is how you gain this thing they call self-mastery. Or this is how you take your subconscious and and redirect it in the direction that you want it in. This is how we form our model communities for ourselves, for our families. This is how you enjoy Jannah right now as we move forward. And that's the world that we are being a part of creating, and that is learning to create, be the creators that Allah says He's the best of creators. So we're all moving into this natural state for us to become better and better at being creators. And that's the process for us. So with that, we will say peace to everyone and have a very productive, strong 7
Yes.
until our next class.
Thank you to all. Salam alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Masalam.